Welcome, everybody, to the Writing Gals podcast, episode 3, where we'll be talking about what is a trope. Michelle is not with us at this moment, but she will be joining in as soon as she gets her kids to bed. So we just thought we'd start out by talking about what we're doing and where we're at right now. I forgot to say our tagline, that we're 4 sweet romance authors staying up late talking all about romance and writing. So I will turn the time over to Victorine to tell us what she's doing and to put any shameless publicity plugs in right here.
Awesome. Thank you, Amy. All right. Well, I am in the middle of editing and getting ready my nonfiction book, How to Write a Swoon-Worthy Sweet Romance Novel. And in anticipation for tonight's show all about tropes, I put my tropes list up on our website, thewritinggals.com. So if you go over to thewritinggals.com, you can click on the link at the top that says Victorine's Trope List, and it'll show my book there and list all those tropes that basically I just Googled found a bunch of websites that listed tropes, and I took my favorite ones and made a list, and I talk about all the different tropes that I use to repel my characters and pull the characters together and all that kind of stuff that I talk about in the book. So that's what I've been working on.
And it's available for pre-order right now. And it's titled, what is it?
It is titled How to Write a Swoon-Worthy Sweet Romance Novel.
Okay. So we will also put that link up in the Writing Gals Facebook group. And when we upload this to the Writing Gals YouTube video, it should be in the description. Hopefully, maybe. If Amazon or not YouTube gets mad at us. Okay, go ahead, Judy.
Okay, so right now I am just barely getting started on my next book. I thought I was going to be writing another billionaire book, but then when I thought about all of the ones in that series, I realized I needed to wait on that one. So I am brainstorming for my my third Ridgewater High novel in my young adult romance series. And if you've read Meet Me There, it's going to be about Noah and his love interest, who's named Lexi. So I'm excited about what I've been coming up with. So I'm hoping it will go fast.
That's awesome. That's super exciting. And then for me, I just finished, I didn't finish, but my Marrying the Cowboy is done and ran its course, and now I just get to watch it slip down in rank, which is fine. And I did start writing my next fake marriage book, but then I decided to that wasn't going to be released until the middle of May. So I didn't want to go that long before I had another release. So I stopped writing that one, and I decided to write a series spinoff of Marrying the Cowboy about other people in the town that I based the Marrying the Cowboy in. So if you've read Marrying a Cowboy, I am now writing his ranch hand and friends love story called Fighting Love for the Cowboy. And it's all an enemies to lovers story. So I'm very excited about that because I really like writing them. I like the fighting kind of subtext, all that fun stuff that goes into that trope. So it's very exciting. I'm at about 14,000 words, I think. I'm hoping it will be a novella. Hopefully I can keep myself condensed enough to write that. So we are talking about tropes, and as we kind of talked about the stories, besides Victorine, but she kind of talked about the overarching trope because that's what her nonfiction book is about. We decided to figure out what is a trope. You hear this all the time, and I always talk to non-writer people about it, and they're always like, "A what? What did you say?" And you're like, "A trope." So let's have Victorine give us the very basic explanation of what a trope is.
All right. So if you Google what is a trope, it'll say it's a plot device used in fiction, a common one that is used over and over again. So defining what that means basically is if you look at any story and you look at some of the things that happen in the plot that might be similar to other stories you've read, that can be a trope. So things that you see that pop up often, like like you were saying, enemies to lovers type of a trope, where these two characters start out as enemies and at the end they're together as a couple. So that's a very common trope. You'll see it all over the place in television shows and movies and books. So that's basically what a trope is.
Perfect. So I thought sometimes for me, I learn better when I am given examples. So I'm going to describe a movie that I have liked very much to these two wonderful ladies, and they're going to tell me the tropes that are in it based on the description I give. Because sometimes when someone says, or you tell them, oh, I just watched this movie, or I read this book and I really liked it, and someone goes, well, what is it about? Then this is kind of how you tell them so that they can relate to the story and know what it's about. So anybody who's watching, if you have seen the movie Don't Tell Her It's Me, it's a 1990s film. I love it because the sister in the story is a Harlequin romance novelist, and she's just hilarious. It's Shelley Long, and she's fabulously funny. And Steve Guttenberg is her brother in the story. So it starts out where the brother has just beat cancer. And he's just he doesn't have any hair. He doesn't have, he's not really fit, but because he was sick and focused on getting better. And so she wants to set up her brother with a girl, and she meets this reporter at one of her like RWA meetings, and she starts asking her questions, and she's like, okay, well, come over for dinner and stuff. So then she comes over and they introduce them to each other, and she's not attracted to him at all. He's actually wearing a wig and he's sweating, and he keeps pushing the wig up higher on his head as he's wiping his sweat away. And you could just see the girl, she's like, what's going on? So then Shelley Long decides, okay, I'm going to make you into one of my Harlequin romance characters. And she's like, that's what women want. So she starts like making him run and tan, and he grows his hair long. And so it's all this preparation for meeting this girl at the gas station, is like their meet cute, like where she meets the new guy. His name is Lobo Marunga, and he talks really gruff, and it's the same guy. And so he rescues her, and then they start to date, and he starts to feel bad because he's not being honest about who he is, but he's falling in love with her. And then she discovers that, oh, this was, you made me fall in love with one of your characters. Was this all just a game for you? So they fall in love. And then obviously she discovers who he really is, and then they go apart. That's the dark moment. And then they come back and they decide to be together. So it's a hilarious movie. I just wish it was on DVD or Amazon Instant, because it's a funny, funny movie.
That sounds great.
It's really good. And just being a writer, I like to watch movies about other writers. So tell me what tropes are in that movie that I just told you. Is it hard?
Ugly Duckling, is that one of them? I'm guessing.
Yeah. So where he turned from, into this, handsome Harlequin romance character from her books. My favorite one is the husband's walking around one time to Shelley Long, and he's like, I'm that character? You based that character off of me? And she's like, yeah. Anyways. Ugly Duckling.
I would say matchmaker.
Yep, matchmaker.
And then was there something kind of like a secret identity or mistaken identity?
Mm-hmm.
Yep, that's what I would say too.
And I think the title of the movie is called Don't Tell Her It's Me. That would be playing off that trope. So that's probably the biggest one.
Mm-hmm.
The secret identity. I would say, yeah.
The secret identity. So it doesn't have to necessarily, like when we hear secret identity, we think, oh, a CIA agent or something like that. But it can just be anything of somebody not wanting to tell the other person that that's who they are. So now you will all go out and watch this movie because it's hilarious.
If we can find it on VHS.
Right.
If you can find it, or behind a VHS player. So,
Yeah.
Welcome, Michelle.
Hello.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, good.
My brief sound check happened in the middle of the video.
Well, we literally just started. So we just talked about what a trope was, and then I talked about the movie. I gave a movie plot, and they were helping me dissect the tropes from it. And they're probably, the more we talked about the movie, we could probably come up with a few more tropes. But those are probably the biggest ones that you would use to describe the movie. So right there, when I was telling you all of that storyline, you were pulling them out, even in your mind. So that's how people relate stories to things that they already know. So if you were trying to, I guess I lost my train of thought. Michelle, why don't you tell us, since you've joined us now, why don't you tell us what you are working on right now? We kind of did our shameless publicity plug at the beginning.
I'm working on my third book in the Southern Billionaire romance series called The Trust of the Billionaire. And I think I've pulled 6 or 7 tropes into this one, since we're talking about tropes tonight.
Nice.
Yeah, it's fun. So I've got the billionaire trope and the boss to employee trope and the nanny trope and the child trope and fish out of water trope, and there's another one I can't remember right now. But yeah, so, and it's interesting. So when I was looking up, I don't know what you guys said that a trope was already today, before I got on here, but I was looking up what it was, and I found a good article about it. But it said that it can be a plot trick, a setup, a narrative structure, a character type, or a linguistic, I can't talk, idiom. And it kind of surprised me because tropes are all kinds of different things. And I think that the article went on to say that the trope itself has to be written well in order for it to work and not become cliche. And I think that that's what a lot of people need to kind of embrace about tropes, is that they can seem cliche when we're just talking about them the way we are, but it's the way you pull them into your whole story and round them out and make them part of all the different threads through your story, and how well you write as far as your craft and your prose that makes them work for readers, because readers don't like things to be tacky and cliche and overdone either.
Exactly. And but I think like what you said, we didn't give we just talked about like what a trope is, but I would agree that readers they want something fresh and new as well. It also makes me wonder when people are like, when you use like what is it called? Where it's in like it's like a needle in a haystack. What is that called?
That's a linguistic idiom that I was talking about, right?
Right. But I don't necessarily think, I've had lots of critiques where I have something similar to that in a book and they go, oh, well, that's a cliche. You could come up with something better. But I think sometimes things are there because they just work too, like if you're just trying to describe it, like I don't want to get so crazy that I confuse people. Like it's like a wing nut inside of an engine or something way more specific, like that. It's sometimes then you're just confusing everybody. So if, sometimes I think simplicity is okay in writing a book.
I also think that tropes aren't really cliche because you can use them over and over again, but each story is so different. Like the movie you were describing, I really want to see that now. And those are, it's packed full of tropes that we listed out. Tropes that I've seen on many different shows and many different times, but it's so different each time. You can use it in a different way. You don't have to make sure that, well, my story is going to start out with a guy that's just getting over cancer too, and my story is going to be about him in disguise. You don't have to use the same details as when you use a similar trope.
Mm-hmm.
You just have to make sure that it's working, that you're using it right. And I think readers all have specific tropes that they love, even if they don't recognize it, even if they don't realize it. There are certain things that everybody really enjoys. I know a lot of people really enjoy the friends to lovers, or the the girl next door, boy next door, or there's certain things that certain people look for, and when they see a book that has that in it, then they respond and say, yes, that's what I want to read. if you're reading Regencies, you might think, yes, I want to read about the jilted fiance or the highwayman rescuing the damsel in distress, or
Mhm.
you know, readers enjoy certain tropes more than others, and that's why we all have to figure out what works best, what's really marketing or marketable, because right now we've found that billionaires are a very popular one. Lots of people like it. Lots of people like cowboys. Lots of people like all these different things. And then there are going to be some that maybe people don't respond to as well. I know that the boss to employee one is going to be tricky for me. I'm going to have to handle it carefully and respectfully and make sure that lines aren't crossed, because that's a big issue right now in society, and something a lot of women especially are concerned about. So I have to be careful with that one. But at the same time, it's a trope for a reason, because there is a certain tension and conflict that's inherent in that one, and that's why it works in the story. So I feel like I'm just babbling, but I have a lot to say.
No, it's good. I think that when I have start writing a book now compared to how I was before I knew all of this, I am way more purposeful about what I'm doing when I start to plot out my book. I mean, I think before it was like, well, I'll just write it and let how the story goes where it goes, which is fine, because I think innately I was writing tropes. We all write tropes in the story. You know, my Cinderheart book, it was a fairy tale retelling, and it was a popular, because he was a popular girl and she wasn't. She was kind of the ugly duckling because she was a Cinderella story. So all of these tropes I didn't know I was putting in there that I was, but now that I'm writing and trying to write faster and plot better, knowing a tropes that I'm using is a lot more helpful for me to write, because now I know exactly what I'm doing and what I'm going to get myself into. And like Victorine's always talking about the things that push people together or pull them apart. That is basically what you use a trope for. He's the boss, she's the employee, therefore that is naturally going to push them apart and bring them together at the same time. And I think in Victorine's trope list, you talk about what repels them and what brings them together. And that's an added bonus to Victorine's list, because not a lot do. They just explain what it is. But here you say, well, this is what would push them together, and this is what will pull them apart. So, well, let's talk about some of our favorite tropes, and then we will pick one of those and we will start to plot a story off of the trope. Kind of basically what we do when we sit down to write a book. So I will ask Judy to give us her first list of tropes that she really loves.
Okay. So I like a lot of them, but so far I've used my most favorite, obviously. That's why I've written them. So I really like the bodyguard one. That was what my first book was about, because that kind of has a little bit of the forbidden thing in it, and they have a reason to be together. I like the boss to employee thing, so I guess when I go to write one of those, I'm gonna have to be careful. I really love the best friend to lovers trope. That one is just so fun. And then the brother's best friend trope, that one, I just love it. All these are kind of forbidden. I guess I just love the forbidden love.
I was going to say, it's a lot about a more dominant person over the other person. That's a lot about your personality. Just kidding.
Well, friends to lover, that wasn't dominant. That was fine. I like love triangles too, as long as they turn out the way I want. And the and the maid, that one's, well, another dominant one. There you go. And the matchmaker. I'm just gonna say all of them because I love them all. Oh, pen pals. Definitely like that one because You've Got Mail is like my favorite movie, so I love that. And the reality TV show, I like that too. And royalty, that one sounds fun. So yeah, those are my favorites. I got a lot of favorites. A lot of books to write. So.
Well, and see right there, you have so many elements that you can like take 3 and then make that a book, and then you could take 2 and a new one and make that a book. I mean, there's lots you could do. Okay, Michelle, tell us your list. Oh, you're muted.
I've got a cold, so I'm trying to spare people. Can I do a Regency one?
Sure.
Since you guys are all full of contemporary, I thought I would share some Regency ones. So when it comes to Regency, I really enjoy the childhood friend romances. And I really like the marriage of convenience ones in Regencies. When there's just a different feeling or tension or conflict to it in Regency that makes it more fun to me than contemporary for some reason. And I really like the rags to riches in Regency, where a man who is lower in the social status and had some sort of an inheritance, or he inherited a rank or fortune, then that the change that makes in the romance with, the woman, whether she's of higher or lower status than him at that point.
So I love Mr. Collins. You want them to do a spin-off of Mr. Collins?
No, not Mr. Collins. He's not heroic material, Amy.
This is true.
Good grief. And I love Masquerades in Regencies. My favorite book of all time by Georgette Heyer is The Masqueraders. And it's where she's dressed up as a boy for most of the book. And it's just fascinating. I enjoyed it in, Shakespeare too. It's kind of a funny, guilty pleasure of mine, I guess. I just think it's a lot of fun to see how people go about finding out the person's true identity, and also how having a different identity in society brings out different aspects of your personality and character. Because especially in Regency, a woman couldn't act or do certain things, but when she's dressed up as a man, she's able to go out and experience society in a different way. And it's just a lot of fun. So how many do I need to give you? Because I could probably go on, but I could also stop there.
No, that's good. That's good. Victorine.
All right. Well, my favorite ones are probably some kind of fake relationship is probably my absolute favorite one, because that inherently sticks them together for the whole book, and it causes conflict because they're not really a couple, and so they have all these problems with each other, and I just adore that one. The one I'm writing right now has a second chance at love, which I've not written one of those before, and so that was kind of fun to play around with. I also have a matchmaker in that one, and I haven't done that before either. So it's really fun to look at all the different tropes and find some tropes that go well together, and ones that maybe you haven't written or haven't explored a lot, and try to come up with some really fun storylines for that. Billionaire, obviously, I love the billionaire trope, and so my series right now is billionaire series, but there's tons of them that I haven't written that I want to write, like Secret Identity. I would love to do that. Like Michelle said, there's just something fun about trying to figure out how to get this person discovered and all the conflict that's going to cause. So I would say those are my favorites.
We can ask a question someone asked. Do you think that the billionaires are on their way out because there are so many books about billionaires right now? She just got a lot of ideas of several tropes that would work with a billionaire.
I don't know that they're on their way out. I know the market is being flooded with them, but I think people are still buying them. I would say do what inspires you. I think there's many tropes that you could write about right now that would sell well. even if it doesn't have a billionaire in it. But I mean, that's kind of what's hot right now. So if you want to write about it, I would go ahead and do it if you've got ideas for it.
What do you guys think, Michelle or Judy? Do you want to weigh in on that question?
I would say, how fast can they write them, really? If they can get 1 or 2 out in the next year or so, they'd probably be fine. But if it takes them a year to write each book or longer, then the market might become really saturated by the time they get them out. We're not fortune tellers. We can't tell at all. But I think that there's always going to be, a market for them. Just the size of the market might change. I know that in several of my reviews, people have made comments about how many there are, but they really enjoyed this one. This was new and fresh. That was the comment they left. And I think that's always going to be the case. Just make your writing stand out, not just writing the same trope as everybody else, but once you do it, give it your own spin and personality, and readers will respond to that.
Yeah, I agree too. I think there are a lot of billionaire books right now, which makes me hesitate in writing more. But I think people will always love them. It's just hoping they'll find yours. So, yeah.
And I think as well, if you are nervous about writing a billionaire because it's flooded, that would maybe be where you would also showcase a second trope in the title or in the cover or the blurb, something like that, that people who like that trope but also like it in another way. So we talked at the beginning about genre, that you shouldn't try and mix genres too much because it can confuse people. But a genre is different than a trope, and a trope is just a storytelling tool. And so it is okay to mix tropes and to use those tropes as you go to describe. So what's one of the things we're going to do tonight is kind of walk you through our thought process on how we come up with a story. And then we're going to talk about how we would showcase it, what we would have the cover look like, and maybe possibly talk about the blurb in it. So my trope favorite, I would have to say that I write is the enemies to lovers is probably my favorite. I like having people start off with their just spitfires to each other, and I think that's really fun. I also like the brother's best friend, second chance romance. That's probably one of my favorite of my billionaires is my second chance romance. I also, let me think, I have to think through my stories. I like redemption. I really like writing a character who feels like he has to prove himself to somebody or he's out. The only thing with redemption is you have to just be very careful on how you write it, because you can't have them be like agonizing over something that happened in their past 1 minute and then they're happy-go-lucky the second. You really have to make sure that redemption is through the entire story. God, I wish I had my list right in front of me, and I'd probably be reading them all off because I like them. I like billionaire books. I'm having a lot of fun writing the fake marriage books. And yeah, I like them all. I want to use them all. So
I kind of want to say which tropes we don't like personally. I really don't like second chance at love. That's one of my least favorite, funny enough. I'm actually writing one sort of with my Regency house party right now, which is funny, but I really don't like it in general.
I think I like it because then I can incorporate the enemies to lovers, because inevitably if you had a romance with them at some point, you will not like them when you go back into the room with them and think, I like to be together with them.
Is there one that you don't like? Can you think of one?
I am not a fan of the alpha male. I just think it's a hard one to write because it is so flooded the spicy romance stories. And I don't know how to write a kind, sweet guy that people aren't going to hate by making him an alpha male. I don't know.
Yeah, because an alpha male is kind of a jerk. So yeah, I agree with that one. Yeah, the one I hate is love triangle. I hate that.
I do too. I hate love triangles. Yes, thank you.
Judy, did you have one that you wanted to throw under the bus?
I'm trying to decide. I'm looking through the list, and I don't know. I guess when I hear fish out of water, that doesn't sound too interesting to me, but I'm sure if it's done well, I'll like it. So I don't know. I was like, whatever. So I don't know if I like dislike any, but I don't like it. I don't know if I like the enemies as much. I just don't like them fighting all the time. I want them to be happy. It depends on how it's done too, I guess. If they're just arguing all the time, I'm just like, how are they ever going to be happy if they just argue all the time? But if they have a reasons for it, then it's fine.
And see, the reason I wanted to kind of do this is because I think it's really interesting that everybody does have sort of gut reactions to tropes, and they're different.
Okay, so I think it's also important when you're going through the trope list is that, so let's start at what kind of book would you want to write? So I always try and think of a main theme because I always try to write a series and I want to base the series off that one trope. So my first book, or my even my YA series, the theme was fairy tale retelling, which is a trope. My second, billionaire, is a trope. My third, a fake marriage. So now I think some of the lists that we gave, well, maybe second chance romance, or are really a sub trope, I would think. I don't think you could base a whole series off of fish out of water. I really don't. And what would you call it? Fish out of water? Like nobody would know what to do with that.
Sounds like a challenge.
Challenge extended. So I think there's some that are just that go along. So fish out of water would go along really well with a maid trope, or what would be another one? What do you guys think? What would go along with a fish out of water?
I totally agree with that. Like, there's some tropes that, like, scars is a really good trope because a lot of characters have past things that cause scars on their emotional level, but that's not really one you can use as a main trope. It just goes along with other ones. So I agree with that. When I choose tropes, I try to find one big trope that shoves those two characters together for the whole book, and one big trope that pulls them apart. And sometimes it's the same trope. Like I said, a fake relationship can sometimes do both at the same time. But I like to try and think of those two big things and then layer in little ones like fish out of water or maid or other things that will go with it.
Oh, I thought of one I don't like. May December. I wouldn't even know how to write that. Like my husband was going through that. He now talks to me when I get story ideas out in trope ways, and he's like, "Oh, make a May December," and I'm like, "Stop talking. You don't know what you're talking about." No, I do not know how to write that trope. I will not write it.
I don't like that one either.
I think a lot of questions we could get are, especially like, so we talk about billionaires, and you're someone who's wanting to write a sweet romance book and decides, okay, I want to write a series. I don't want to do billionaires because it's super hot. How do you pick a hot genre? Or not genre, excuse me. How do you pick a hot trope? And how do you pick a trope that's going to carry through a series? So any advice?
I would say if it's a trope, then it's a popular thing. So I wouldn't worry about picking a hot trope per se, because the reason they're tropes is because they're used all the time and they work really well. So I would find one that really speaks to you and that really makes you think of a story that you really want to write. Because I don't think there's, besides the few that people don't like May December, there's a group of people that like that, even though we don't like it. So, pick one that really speaks to you. And if you layer in a few other ones, I think you're pretty set.
Michelle or Judy, did you want to talk about that? No.
Oh, I'm just agreeing with Victory, and
yeah,
so
you covered it well.
Really good.
So I think though is okay. So you look through the trope list. How do you base your series? Let's start. Let's talk about. We're not going to do billionaires and we're not going to do fake marriage because those are easy picks. So let's pick a trope. and let's make it a big trope, and then because we're going to turn it into a series. So how do you think through that process of, I'm going to take this trope and turn it into a series?
I want to do a bodyguard one.
Bodyguard. Oh, I know. I'm so excited to do bodyguard.
Yeah, I was going to say that one too.
That's perfect.
Let's do a bodyguard one. Bodyguard is our main trope.
Because that you can turn into a series. And I think when you look at this, it's not as specific as some other things, and it's not as very, very narrow. You could go a lot of different ways. And I think if you're going to sit down and you're going to say, okay, I'm going to use this trope as my series, write down all the tropes that can mash with bodyguard. And so if we were to take fish out of water, I don't think there would be as many that we could get to fit in that as the main under our main title. So we're going to do bodyguard. And I also, when I decided I wanted to do a bodyguard series, I haven't started, but it's one I want to do. I was looking at what's popular in other romance books. So even in the spicy romance, bodyguard is big. Alpha male is also big. Bodyguard or billionaires are big. I don't think they have as many fake marriage ones in a spicy romance book. But when you do bodyguard, you're more going towards romantic suspense than just pure romance, which can be fun. And it's easier to add conflict outside of they can't talk about this. So, okay. So we have bodyguard. Then what else do we want to put in it?
I was actually like brainstorming bodyguard book ideas for a series that I want to do sometime a while ago. And I was trying to think of it. And so I think you could do like the bodyguard for a celebrity. That would be pretty easy to make a whole book.
Is celebrity a trope? I don't have the trope list in front of me.
Yeah, it is.
So we're going to do, first book is going to be a celebrity one. Now that is the bodyguard for the celebrity. I guess the celebrity. And that's what you have to be careful, because you could say you could not have a billionaire bodyguard, because that just wouldn't make sense. Why would a bodyguard ever be a billionaire? Or why would a billionaire ever be a bodyguard? That just, unless maybe he's undercover but that might be adding too many layers of stuff. There's just some that are not gonna mesh. You could have a bodyguard for a billionaire, but then you're changing the trope, because the trope is now going to be a billionaire woman instead of, or the girl. But yeah, you're changing the trope now. So you got to be careful with how you do that. Okay, so book one, we're going to do celebrity. Michelle, why don't you give us one that you want to add to our series? You're unmuted.
You're muted.
It's because I'm home with all my kids, and my 4-year-old just woke up screaming. So anyway, she's back to sleep. I want to do a rock star bodyguard one, where the rock star actually becomes the bodyguard instead of like him having a bodyguard.
The rock star becomes the bodyguard.
Yeah.
Why?
Because who does he guard? Who does he guard?
He guards his lady love from crazy stalker people. His stalker fans.
Ah.
Cool.
Does he still continue being a rock star, or is that kind of a...
It's not like so do you consider the bodyguard to be like his job, or do you consider it to be what he is, what he's doing in that story? Is he performing the function of a bodyguard, or is he one by profession, right? Which is a tricky thing.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Victorine, do you want to give us one?
I would love one where it's a second chance at romance. So he gets a call to go to a bodyguard job, and he gets there, and it's like his ex-girlfriend, and they're stuck together through this whole book, and he hates her.
But he still has to protect her.
Yes, I want that one.
And I would say the one I have in my mind that I want to do is a best friend, sibling's best friend. And I have like the whole first chapter thought out in my mind. So I'm really excited. But he's a bodyguard she's a fashion designer. So that would be the profession, but it is his brother's or his best friend's little sister that the story is about. Okay, sorry guys, I'm writing this down so I know what we're talking about. Okay, so celebrity. So Judy, since this is the one you picked, so now we have a bodyguard for a celebrity. What else can we add in there? So that's not really, unless the bodyguard has some anger towards a celebrity, that's not really anything that's going to push them apart or pull them together. Well, the bodyguard and the celebrity pulls them together. So let's talk about what kind of things can we add to push it apart, to repel them?
They can be enemies.
So did they previously know each other then?
They can, or he could have maybe just like noticed her in the news or in the movies, and just she rubbed him the wrong way. Just all the things he saw her doing, and he just couldn't stand the thought of her as a person, and then he's stuck guarding her. So that's
is that a trope, Victorine? What trope would that be? Would that be mistaken identity? No.
Sorry, I was thinking about what I was going to say when you asked me.
Sorry. Do you want Judy to say it again?
Yeah, what did she say?
Oh, just when they so this is just coming off my head. I don't know if it's any good. So the bodyguard had watched like the celebrity girl in the news, and he just thought she was annoying and didn't like her and what she did with her life, and then he gets stuck guarding her.
Yeah, that would be kind of almost enemies. Or maybe opposites attract.
Oh, that's good. Opposites. Yeah, because I'm like, if they enemies, I would really think that they
had to know each other,
or unless she had some like issues with a bodyguard and he has issues with celebrities, that's where I would be more than just not that specific person, but I hate celebrities because a celebrity killed my dad or something like that. And so they have that, like they assume that they know. But I like opposites.
Mm-hmm.
Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else that you want to add to it? Because you could layer things in there.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm trying to look through the thing. They could get stranded somewhere. That sounds fun.
So that's another push together.
And you could add a fake marriage to that too. She somehow has someone coming at her, and they're trying to catch him maybe, so he goes undercover as her husband. I don't know.
That sounds good.
Yeah.
But that's another push together. See, this is Judy's. We gotta be pushing them apart. What's pushing them apart? What do they not like about each other?
He thinks she's ugly. I don't know. He's the ugly duckling celebrity. No, I don't know. I'm not good. See, I'm really bad at the repelling things because I just want them to be happy. So.
This is true. I just want to give them lots of reasons to be together. So, like, I think another one. So, one that works really well with fake marriage is the jilted bride, which works really well together. So they have to be married, or they have to be married or engaged, or however you want to define a fake relationship, fake marriage. But she has trust issues, so she is pushing away. So I think with bodyguard, there could be, God, I wish I had the list in front of me. I can't look through and brainstorm. Yeah. Why don't you think of one more, and we'll come back to you and you can tell us what that is.
One more repelling thing, is that what you're saying? Or okay.
Yeah. Because at some point, the problem is with something like opposites attract, because he's going to figure out that she's not a stuck-up celebrity. So then once he figures that out, if that's the only reason they're being pushed apart, then your story is going to be over. And I would hope that you wouldn't want her to act like a snob the whole book until all of a sudden she's not, sort of thing.
Yeah, I guess the afraid to commit is a repelling one.
Okay.
So he could have some reason why, or she could have a reason why they just don't want a relationship. Maybe because she was jilted, like you'd suggested, so she just, all men are bad.
There you go. I think it's a popular one, jilted relationship person, because it's a book based on relationships. And so that's a big one. Any type of past issues you've had with relationships are ones that can push it down or whatever. Okay. Michelle, your rock star who becomes the bodyguard. Why don't you tell us what you were thinking for that?
Okay, so over the sound of me cracking my knuckles, here we go. So I think I'm going to have her be a maid, for him, and that's how they meet and get to know each other. And so then we have some social class coming in there too. And then we're going to have the breakup for her good thing, because he doesn't want her to be harmed by all of his crazy stalker fans who are angry that he's dating somebody and somebody that's not even that cool. And so she's having threats and made against her. So then the breakup for her good thing kills them both, but he's determined to do it, right? So that's 4 tropes. Is that enough for you yet?
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, Miss Victorine.
All right, so they are X, so it's second chance at love. And then I would probably make her someone famous, like an actress or something, a performer. So I would get that one in there, because why would you have a bodyguard if she wasn't famous? And then I would do social class, because she's rich and he's not. And then I would do woman in peril, because she needs a bodyguard because somebody's after her. And so he needs to protect her. And so
that would be an example of like the fake marriage and the jilted bride. Those go together. So woman in peril and bodyguard would go together.
Those really do go together well, yeah.
You really wouldn't, well, you might have a fake marriage, woman in peril joined together, but I don't, maybe. But I think
you could try it, but.
Add woman in peril to my list. That's 5. Woo! Am I winning?
Yay! Yeah, these books are sounding so good. Now we just need to add character names to it, and you guys can just go and write your story. So for mine, the brother's best friend bodyguard was that he's kind of a redemption. So he feels protective over this girl because he was his best friend's sister, but he has. I think a popular thing to do with bodyguards is to make them ex-military of some sort. So he has some sort of past issues that he doesn't feel good enough to be with her. She's kind of if I had my trope list in front of me, I could tell. But she's like a headstrong, I don't need your help, I don't want you around, I can figure this out on my own type of personality. So she's really pushing against him. I also think, what is it called? Unrequited love. One of my characters will have that, whether it be the girl for the guy or the guy for the girl. I'm not 100% sure. Obviously, I haven't written the book yet or nailed that down, but that would be one I would want to put in there. And then I do like the stranded one. But I like to really use tropes to give me the conflict of my story. So when I go through, because that way I know right away what issues they are going to have with the other person. And I think that is really helpful, because I think we do a good job of bringing our characters together, but we need to always be having physical reasons to keep them apart, but not apart, but from not touching. And then more emotional reasons for why they cannot be together, because there has to be something that is stronger than the physical desire they have to be close together. And so those are things that have to be ingrained inside of them from the beginning. Okay, I think we should totally make this a series, guys. So you guys will all write it and we'll figure it out. So
coming
now
in
that
2019.
Go ahead. What?
I said coming in 2019.
Right.
Okay, so now that we know what we want to do, we're going to go, okay, so you've written your book or you've got your idea, you want to come up with a title, a cover, and a blurb. How do you do that and showcase the tropes? Because I'm sort of learning this from my book, my fake marriage book that we put out. And I'm really trying to do what I think maybe helped the book be so successful. Does anybody really know? No. But what can I learn, or how did I use? Because I remember talking to these fabulous ladies and saying, well, I know a cowboy is a hot trope and fake marriage is a hot trope. How do I showcase both of those right on the cover so people who like both of those tropes know what they're getting? And that's why it was just a simple marrying a cowboy trope with a fake marriage series as the title, or as a series title, so people knew exactly what they were getting. So we are going to screen share, you guys, and how we would do some research on Amazon. So I'm going to pull up Amazon and share. Is it up? Okay, hold on. I got to get it up on me. Can you guys see it?
Yeah, it's up when I'm not talking.
Okay, so this is where we go to do all of our research on Kindle ebooks and what are doing popular. So this is the #1 book, which I can't even imagine what they're making in bestsellers in just all the Kindle ebooks. So as you can see on the left here, there's a ton. So romance is where we're going to go to because that's what we are, sweet romance writers. And then we're going to go to, what do you guys think? Clean and wholesome? No. Where would a bodyguard book be under? Mystery and suspense?
Nobody wants to talk because then our screens will go over yours.
Oh, no, it's okay. Just go ahead and talk so you can walk me through this.
Try mystery and suspense.
Okay. I will just keep talking after you. So mystery and suspense romance. Let's see if there's some bodyguards in here. There's To Protect. So this obviously would not be the cover we were going to, but I just read the title and right away I knew it's going to be a bodyguard one, right? Because it says there's To Protect. So I can look at the cover for spicy romance. It's a bare-chested guy and a girl underneath looking terrified. Let's go down. These are kind of racy.
You can just go to Protect My Heart. That's a clean one.
That's a great idea.
Oh, would I want to go suspense? Yeah, because we don't want mystery. Right? Because you would do, maybe. Sorry, guys. You're going through this with me. Do you guys see another one? His Captive? Maybe. No, that's a mafia. Oh, there's a Scarred one that has Scarred in the title. I know I've seen some people that have bodyguards.
Do you ever just search like bodyguard romance, like a reader would? I do that quite often, just to see
you can try it.
And
just to
Kindle
see what
books.
readers will find when they're looking for it.
Oh, that's perfect. Okay, so here's another one, a guy on the cover looking super muscular, and The Bodyguard as the title. So pretty specific in its title. You know exactly what the trope is.
Two tropes. It's got Navy SEAL in there as well.
Oh, okay. Yep. So Bodyguard and a Navy SEAL romance is the title. So you can show two tropes with the series title. Vulnerable and McIntyre Security Bodyguard series. So that's pretty much, well, she's would you say a woman in peril?
Yep, woman in peril. And
then a security seriously as a bodyguard. There's a guy looking muscular on there. Not so muscular looking guy. Twice Bitten has a guy. So as you're looking through here, you can tell pretty much what people are going to look for when they look at a book. This one is not. I have a feeling this is probably traditionally published because really only traditionally published people can get away with a book that doesn't have it. But guy on there, kissing. There's a guy on there. There's a dog on there. I don't know if that would be a romance though. Did I Google romance? Okay, so that's basically what we do. Go to Amazon and you look and you see what's on there.
Yeah, you look and see what they all have in common. You look and see what they're putting on the covers. And for example, the majority of these bodyguard books have a strong male on the cover and not a couple.
Mm-hmm.
A few have the distressed woman, but the vast majority of them have the strong man alone.
Yeah, and I would say look for the theme of the ones that are similar, not the outliers, because we only saw one with a woman on it. So I agree with that.
Mm-hmm. And what you can also do is then click on that and check out where their ranking is at. And that can give you a good idea of what. And also if you go down and then you look in their also bot in that book, you can see that it's similar. But you notice there's not a whole lot of sweet romance books that have it. And you can tell, as most sweet romance authors know, is your cover is not spicy because there is no bare-chested man on your cover, because the bare-chested man signifies it is the spicy book. So if for me, I have had Victorine already do my cover, and it is a guy with a white shirt, muscular looking, and it's just him on my cover. So Michelle or Judy, do you want to, or Victorine, you guys can talk about what you would do for your cover, or pretty much explained it, but.
Yeah,
Yep.
I would have a guy wearing a shirt, but his muscles showing through.
Right.
Agree.
You don't want like no offense, you don't want like a super skinny guy. That
No.
just would not evoke confidence that this guy could really protect you.
In fact, don't I have a picture of the guy that I would use as my rock star bodyguard?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, we do. We have him picked out. So one of my things is I have Pinterest boards, and I save pictures, stock photos that I like for different stories. So when I eventually get around to my bodyguard series, I already have some strong males picked out for the cover.
Awesome. Yeah, that's exactly what I would do, is just look at different examples of books that are selling well in your genre. And another thing I would say is that if there's a big market for something, a trope that's spicy, you can probably make a killing using that in the sweet romance market, as long as you make a cover that makes it obvious it's a sweet romance. Like, there's not a lot of bodyguard sweet romances, so I bet they will do really well when you guys start writing them.
Yeah, although there's a new series that just started. I think there are 2 books out in it.
Wonderful.
In sweet romance. One is The Protective Warrior by Kimmy Checketts, right? And then the next one just came out. What was it called? The something else warrior, another P word. Did that sound awful?
Like the Navy SEAL romance. It's like all the established sweet romance authors have come together and they write to release every 2 weeks in the same series.
Yes. Exactly. Well, Victory, what would you say? Oh, here, I can pull up the thing right now and get the title, because while I'm going ahead and saying it. So The Peaceful Warrior by Daniel Banner came out in that Navy SEAL romance. So they've got the stories coming up for this group of Navy SEALs that have been hired to be bodyguards. And each story in the series is going to tell a particular Navy SEAL story. So it's just, to me, I think that's one of the first bodyguard series I've seen popping up in Clean and Romance. I mean, I've likely missed one, but that's the first one I've really noticed lately. How about you guys?
Yeah, I haven't seen many. That's probably the next big thing. So everybody should start writing it right now.
Yeah, just go. What would you say about font work, Victory, since you're our cover person? Because we're not going to want the same flowery, scrolly font necessarily.
Yeah, I would definitely look at the popular ones and look at the fonts, and it's probably going to be a more bold font. Probably sans serif, more like a thriller font is my guess.
Yep.
How about you, Judy? Because you have a bodyguard one, but tell us why your cover's a little different.
Well, mine it's like a YA one. So I didn't want to put this big, huge guy and make people think that it was an adult clean romance book. So yeah, I tried to get a guy that still looked like he was strong, but yeah, I don't know if I would still do that now, but it's worked okay and it's sold pretty well. So yeah.
All right, we're almost out of time. Should we look at the questions that we have?
Can we just talk about one thing quick though? I think we should talk about a title. So what do you guys think would be the best way to showcase the tropes in the title? And I know we talked about just saying The Bodyguard, but we can't go all out and write our book and have it be called The Bodyguard. So what would you do? Could you give us kind of like a quick, off the top of your head title that you would try to use to showcase all your tropes? And
I would try and find words that are that symbolize that, like Judy did for Protect My Heart, protect or guard, or words that bring that to your mind. And as long as you in your description you hit on that really well, that's going to really scream that genre with the guy on the cover and something about protecting or guarding in the title. It's going to scream that genre.
Well, and I think as well with the Navy SEALs, because isn't that military or something is a trope? So right there, they're hitting 2 tropes. So it's trying hard to hit as many tropes in your title and your series title as you can. I think with my billionaires, I have confusing titles because they only hit on one trope. If I could go back, I would probably change it and try to make it more examples of two tropes. The one title I did come up with was Her Inconvenient Bodyguard, because she is that strong-headed. But I wonder if I might go back and try and make it sound a little dual tropey. I don't know if that's a word, because I like just having a clean bodyguard series as my title, series title. So trying to figure out a way to really incorporate that into my title. Michelle, do you want to try and give us a stab at what you think your title would be?
Hey, why not like Her Rock Star Bodyguard? Woohoo! I mean, it wasn't long ago, I used to try and come up with all these creative titles that, no one would have ever used before and were totally unique to my story. And I will still do those for some stories, but for mass market appeal, tell the readers what the book is about, right? So I don't know. I'd probably work on it a little bit, but I would try to use Rockstar and Bodyguard in the title for sure.
And Judy?
Yeah, I would probably, since I like the fake marriage trope better than the celebrity, and it's kind of obvious that you would probably be guarding someone like a celebrity, I'd probably do like my fake marriage to my bodyguard. That's a really long title. So marrying my bodyguard, I don't know.
Oh, there you go.
That actually sounds cute.
Yeah.
But
that's my book, everyone. Just so you know, I'm going to write it.
What does it do? Copyright Judy Corey. No one can take that.
Now, what do you guys think about pronouns as far as the POV your book is set in? So Judy writes a lot in first person since she writes in YA. So she could say what did you say your thing was? Marrying my bodyguard?
Yeah, so if I did third person, it'd be
marrying her bodyguard.
Yeah.
I agree. I think it needs to be in the point of view the book is in.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people mess that up with their blurb too.
Mm-hmm.
With their book description is that they have it like written in first person, but the book is written in third, or vice versa.
I wrote my blurb for my Cinderheart series in first person, but I was trying to be cool. And I like it. And it's because it's also in first person. But most of the time blurbs are third person present. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You definitely, I think, don't want to go the other way around and have a first person blurb and then have the book be a third, which I've seen happen before.
Yeah.
And I've seen titles that were in first person and the book wasn't.
Well, and I think you also, you got to look at movies titles as well. An Officer and a Gentleman right there. That's a tropes, right? And it's very, very plain. Even You Got Mail. I mean, that's talking to pen pal, and maybe it's not showing romance as much, but it's still talking to a trope. Or, they're very, there's lots of money spent into figuring out how to get people to buy things in a short period of time. So we want to make it as easy and accessible to everybody who's looking or comes across our book to know exactly what they're getting into and what it's about. Because the obscure ones that we talk about are harder to sell because people just don't know what it's about. And they have no frame of reference. Say, oh yeah, I like that kind of book, or oh no, I don't like that kind of book. Because we just even said here, these are tropes that we're not a big fan of. And so whether or not we would pick up a book with that trope on it, we pick it up, we read half of it and then leave a scathing review because it's just not something that we connect to. So you kind of want to weed out all those people that would do something like that.
Readers scroll through just like we were scrolling through. Mm-hmm. They're not taking their time considering every single book that comes up in their search results. They're scrolling and they're looking for the cover and the title that hits them, and that's the only thing that's going to get them to click, right? And so we have to catch them, right when they've got that 1 second on our cover.
Well, and it was almost like when we scrolled past that girl, it was almost like, wait a minute, is this book even supposed to be in here?
Yeah.
Because it just, no offense, it's a nice title, but I just thought, wow, what is this about? Like, and I'm not in a good way, not in a good, what is this about? It was like, Amazon must not know what it's doing because it put this random picture of a girl in a bodyguard series search. Okay, are we good? That's hopefully helpful for anybody who's got lots of questions about how we put tropes, and hopefully walking you guys through what we do is helpful. So if Victorine wants to shoot us with some questions.
All right. Do you have suggestions on how to make a marriage of convenience trope work in a contemporary romance? Amy, you're doing, you were thinking of marriage of convenience in contemporary.
So that's a tricky one to write because it needs to be believable. But I think readers will also give you some leeway into thinking, okay, this obviously is a fiction story, so it's not going to work. I like to add crazy people in it that are asking them to either requiring them to be married, or in my current Marrying an Athlete, their best friend wants to take them to a resort about marriage for marriage counseling. And so she fakes a marriage with the girl's brother to go with and be a support system. So they're being asked to be married together. So I think that would be a way to figure it out. You just have to think, okay, or like my latest one, he had to inherit his ranch, so he faked a marriage to do it. But I think Victorine, you have some too, where the girl gets married in Las Vegas because she just tired of being the disappointed daughter, or disappointment to the daughter, right?
That one, actually, she thinks she's marrying one guy and she marries the wrong guy. She only talked to him online, and so she didn't really know what he looked like. And he thought he was being set up, and so he walked in, and he needed to get married because of his, grandmother was forcing it or something. So, but yeah, you can look at different marriage of convenience books that are out right now and see what they're doing, and kind of come up with something plausible based on what other people are doing. That's what I would do.
I always think that babies and children work well with marriage of convenience. That, to have guardianship of a child, you need to have a spouse for whatever reason, or that the kids are put into custody of two adults can be a reason. I think anytime someone's a celebrity or a politician or a movie star, anything like that can give you sort of drastic reasons for public approval can be a good reason. I think marriage of convenience works really well in regencies and historicals, but they are harder to pull off in contemporary, and so you just have to think of kind of more drastic situations to put your characters in.
Or like the proposal where she's going to get deported.
Exactly.
And she needs to get married.
Yeah. It can't be just like your next door neighbor wants to, combine your land. I mean, that doesn't work in contemporary,
Yeah.
Yeah. That would be odd and strange. Judy, did you want to say something?
Oh, no, I think you guys got it. So
next question.
Okay, a couple of people are asking, how do you use tropes but keep it fresh and original? We kind of talked about that a little bit.
Yeah, I think, I'm gonna say a lot of it depends on your characters. Like every character is different, and the situations they're in are different. So you can we've all written books about billionaires, but every single one of those is different from the other because we all have our different styles. We have different things we like, different voice. So yeah.
Keeping any story fresh is about the strength of your dialogue when you're using it to create characterization for your cast, and then how strong your prose is. I think that one thing that we all need to look at as writers is to constantly be strengthening our prose, because that is what appeals to readers as more of a tactile experience rather than just the tropes and the stories that they're coming there to accept. They want to be able to be immersed in the story and to be able to have a good experience in it. And that's where, the actual combination of words on the paper comes into play.
Right. And I think if you look at the combinations, if you were to take one out to be your main one, And if if you feel like I'm at a creativity slump, or I'm just, how am I going to write for the rest of my life and not, there's so many combinations you could do of all of those different tropes, the small ones, the major ones that other people haven't done, and then adding your own experiences or things that you've watched or seen or read or gone through that adds to that story to make it fresh. And along that line, somebody just asked, wouldn't using tropes in the titles just end up making all the titles generic? What do you guys think about that?
I think you could come up with a unique title, and if you wanted the trope still to be in there, you could do a series title that has that trope in there.
Yeah, and I think that one of the things I always do is I go on and do a search on Amazon for my title. And I see what else is out there that's similar, because it'll pull up not just the exact title, but it'll pull up anything that's close to your search terms. And it surprises me how often titles that you would think, oh, surely somebody's done this, people haven't done it, or they've done it as a series title and you're using it as a book title. And but you also have to understand a lot of these books, you can look at their ranks, because if they're not ranked very high and they're not selling very high, because maybe their cover isn't very good, or their book description isn't very good, or they haven't marketed well, then they're not even going to show up in search results with yours if yours is high enough. So it doesn't necessarily make it generic. It's something that is all about point of sale. It's not necessarily where you show off your creativity all the time.
Right. It's the thing you draw them in with, and then it's the story that keeps them there. So for me, I'm like, first of all, I'm not a brilliant title maker at all. So I like just to be as basic and generic as possible, because I want to be as upfront, this is what you're getting into, as I can be. Because I think a lot of times you're like, I don't even know what that title means. Like, why is it that title? I have no idea. So for me, keeping it because if I think about how many books there are and how many people are scrolling, they don't want to think super hard about a title. And books can or movies can be named certain things that are traditionally published, or movies that are put out there, but they have so much money going into marketing them that has to push that title and that cover and the trailer or the blurb of the book in front of so many people, because then it's not really the title or the cover that's selling it, it's the story that's being told about it. Like, I just watched a Good Morning America about the lady who just signed a seven-figure deal for her book, and her book is called The Children of Blood and Bones, and it's a strange cover. And the thing that drew me in was neither of those things. It was listening to her talk about her story and tell about what it is. And I was like, oh, that actually sounds really good. I think I want to pick that up. But us as self-published authors, we do not have that ability to sit in front of somebody and say, oh, well, no, you need to read this book because it has X, Y, and Z in it. So for us, it's better to be more upfront and explicit about what exactly is in our book than the other way around. Judy, did you have anything?
Well, and then, I kind of did the opposite with my young adult books. But I'm kind of regretting that I hadn't put the tropes in the titles, because I wonder if they would have sold even better if I had on my Ridgewater High ones, anyways. But I think that once, like, when you're first starting, you definitely do want to stick with the tropes in the title. But then maybe once you've gained your following and you have a lot of people that'll just automatically buy your book no matter what it's about, that you can probably take a little more leeway in whatever you choose to do for the title. But when you're first starting, it's a good idea to do that, because I've watched the bestseller lists, and like unknown authors that have never published anything, they put like the character name and the bad boy in the title, and it skyrockets to number one. So really, it is a tool that is a good idea to use. You don't have to, but you might be hurting yourself by not.
Yeah, and I would say if you just really don't want to use a really tropey title, you got to remember, you got to sell that trope somewhere, you know. And if your title doesn't have it, your cover has to have it. Your cover has to be strong. You know, your tagline has to be strong. You have to sell it somewhere. Even so, you know, it's a choice that you're going to make. If you just really don't want to use all the tropes right in your title, then make sure you know how to sell it somewhere else.
And that being said, you also don't want to completely overwhelm your reader with every trope you have in your book. So you pick one or two main ones, and that's the ones you go with, because that's what's going to cause people to. And then make sure that trope is carried through the entire book and not just done in the first chapter or two, and then that trope or that conflict has been resolved. So, okay. Any more questions, Victorine? Or
let's see. What are the most common mistakes you see when people are trying to hit the tropes but they miss?
I would say one of them is what I just said about not fulfilling that trope all the way through. If it's going to be your main, so like in one of my billionaire books, there's a mistaken identity in the first chapter, but it is, sorry, I have people walking around my house. There we go. But it's resolved in the first chapter. So that is not a trope that I would showcase in my book at all, or in my trope. So that would probably be, I think for me, would be the biggest thing mistake I would see people do.
Yeah, I would say for me, it's not embracing the trope, right? So especially with our billionaire romances, for example, give them a billionaire romance. You know, make these guys have the money and the power and the possessions. Let them spend their money, or, you know, show it off somehow or other. Let the reader wants the fantasy of the wealth and the life that it gives you. So you can get away with like putting them in a different situation. Like Amy had hers in a plane crash, and so they're in the wilderness for most of theirs. But if you're not going to have them living in luxury accommodations and flying private jets and, you know, throwing fabulous dinner parties, have a really good reason for it, you know, and sell that trope in a different way. But don't flake out and just put it in there because you're trying to sell it and then not actually, you know, have it be part of the story.
Yes. I would say that the last way I see it, they use a trope, but they don't showcase it at all in the blurb or anywhere. And so you don't even know they're using that trope.
Yeah, I just have to agree with you. And even if you're not, well, just like Michelle was kind of talking about earlier, just use them as much as you can and put them in the title, your series title, and then like your blurb and your tagline. And if you have multiple different ones, put the one in each of those. I don't know, just put them all out there.
Well, like for a bodyguard trope, he better be saving her life at the end of the story, right?
Mm-hmm.
If she's a woman in peril, if she's never in any danger, then you're in trouble.
Yeah.
Or
well, also if he's like that's his job, but it's not the job that he has for the girl, then that would not be a bodyguard trope. You know, like
exactly,
an accountant is just it was just his job, but it's nothing to do with the plot of the story. That would be a mistake.
Yeah. So you gotta really make sure that you're using it to full effect and with a purpose.
Because people are going to read it and think this is what the story is going to be about, and it's that reader expectation that you wouldn't be fulfilling then at that point.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
All right. The last question that I think we should do is if you write a book before you knew about tropes and you accidentally put some tropes in there, what's the best way to capitalize on that?
Change your blurb, change your tagline, possibly change your cover and your title. Just do what you can to get those in as soon as you realize that you need to. So,
yeah, I agree.
But with Amazon, what's nice about it, if you're just changing, if you keep your title but you change your cover or your blurb, you don't have to get a new book. And so Amazon will let people, or you don't have to get a new ISN, whatever it's called. And that way Amazon will alert the person not to purchase that book again. But if you do change the title, you have to start a new book again. I think you might.
I actually did change the title. I just added to it, and it let me. So I think you could change the title.
I think you can change things with the Kindle that you can't.
Yeah, with Kindle.
The
yeah.
Oh, you can change things with Kindle and not with the hard copy book?
That makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah, because they're just tied to the ISBN.
You're right.
Okay. Okay, then yeah, go in and change it. Do what you can to showcase those things. And then what I would do as well is then kind of treat it as a relaunch and then drop it probably to 99 cents and then get newsletter swaps and then maybe purchase a couple promotions. So it kind of helps get that more visibility right there. But Amazon will keep people from purchasing the same book again, which is nice. So, and then sometimes I know I saw Cami Checketts do that with one of her books. She changed the cover of it, and at the top she said, "This used to be this with this cover." She described the cover or something like that. She changed things for it, so it is possible too. And then I would definitely, I mean, it's written words, it's money that's sitting there that's not being made. So do what you can to change those things.
Yeah, I think most people who haven't thought about tropes before would be surprised at how many that they've already put in.
Mm-hmm.
You know, unconsciously. It's just part of storytelling. And so learning and recognizing what they are in your own story just helps you capitalize on, you know, on the ability to market your book later on.
Right. And then you can always come to the Facebook page, The Writing Gals, and we'd be more than happy to check out if we have, or other people that are there. We have a very blooming group there. So I don't know if that sounds weird or not, but that would be happy to look at your book and give you any advice that we think you could use. If it's not from one of us four, it's from the other wonderful group members that we have that will be happy to give you that idea. But I hope we hope from this podcast that you guys learned that it's really important to be intentional. And that's pretty much what we have. Don't just let it be like, well, okay, we'll just put it out there and maybe it'll work, maybe it won't. Be very intentional. Look at the other things that are selling and the names of those, and take your story that you have in your head and help mold it into something that will sell. And I think, you know, books will sell then. People want to read, and they want to read good literature. So let's give it to them.
Yep.
All right. I think we're good. We'll see you guys next Thursday here at this channel, and join us at the Writing Gals group on Facebook or our website, thewritinggals.com. Pick up Victorine's book. It's on pre-order right now. We'll link it in the comments and the Writing Gals. So you guys can learn all about how to write what did you call it? Swoonworthy?
Swoonworthy.
Swoonworthy. I'm like smoothie romance. All right. Good night.
Thanks for staying up late with us.
Yeah, see ya.